right. Well, welcome. I am so excited to be doing this live recording of the Be the Hope podcast. So, welcome to the Be the Hope podcast, where we share stories of hope to inspire you to be the hope that you need to see. And on this evening, we've got a what I think is going to be a great episode for you on today, where we're going to share some things that are very near and dear to my heart. Uh, Maybe you know or don't know that I grew up as a pastor's kid, and so today we're going to have a online panel and talk about the ups and downs, the highs and lows of growing up in church as a pastor's kid. So, really quickly, let me go ahead and introduce our panel on this evening. Now, um, we were originally, if you saw the flyer that I created, we were originally slated to have Haley Reed and Miss Angela Perkins with us this evening. But unfortunately, Haley was not able to join us because she had a death of a loved one. So please keep her in prayer um, and her loved ones as they mourn the death of someone who was very near and dear to their family. And also, Miss Angela was called into work, so she was not able to join us this evening. But she was kind to help us find someone to kind of take her space. And so we actually have her sister that's going to be joining us today. So let me introduce her. And let's see. Rochelle Graves is a worship leader, evangelist, and home coordinator for Ability Plus, where she serves as a supervisor for the mentally ill. Rochelle is also a wife, mother, and grandmother. And so we are super happy to have you on the pod this evening, Rochelle.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, good deal, good deal. All right, our next guest is James Edward Vito. He was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. He is an assistant pastor, apologist, community activist, entrepreneur, podcast host, and job coach for the physically and mentally disabled. Bro, you are a literal polyglot. And James has one son who was born on his birthday, shares birthday with his son. That's pretty cool.
Mm.
I share a birthday with my wife, so that's pretty cool.
Wow.
And James started preaching at 3 years old. His initial sermon was at 10 years old, and after a sabbatical from preaching from age 12 to 20, he returned to the pulpit at 21 and was ordained at 24. Some of James' hobbies are religion, philosophy, politics, social issues, music, fashion, anime, comics, sci fi, and combat sports. Again, this brother is a literal polyglot, and we are
Lord.
a polymath. Excuse me, I said polyglot, but I meant
But
polymath.
not
And so we are
not be
super thankful to have you on the pod.
not me being William Tyndale. Oh my gosh, not polyglot.
There you go. Yeah, yeah,
Y'all are using words I don't know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not confusing the lawyer. Oh my Lord, Jesus.
Yeah, no, he's got it. And
Peter.
last but surely not least, uh, Barnes Hayward, who is originally from Huntsville, Alabama. Barnes is a personal injury attorney serving in North Alabama. Barnes and his wife, Cappy, are members of Southwood Presbyterian Church, first pastored by Barnes's father in 1988, and they are grateful to be raising their two wonderful daughters, cherishing every moment in their family's endeavors. So, thanks for being on the pod, Barnes.
Man, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's my joy. Now, we are gonna go straight into the hard stuff. So we are gonna go straight into it. We are I've shared with our panel tonight, or at least they've shared with me, that pretty much there are no holds barred this evening. So we're gonna try to give it to you raw and unfiltered. And I believe that the Lord is going to use this to help a lot of folks, to inspire hope in a lot of people. Now, this isn't an opportunity for us to bash the church. This isn't an opportunity for us to bash our parents as members of a ministry family. But we want to give hope to someone who may have a story like ours, or to give hope to pastors who are raising children, give hope to children even who are kind of living stories that are similar to ours. And so we just want to inspire hope in people who may have stories similar to ours. So again, let's get right to it. And you can feel free to jump in, kind of get in where you fit in. But the first question is, what do you think is the primary misconception of ministry families?
That we make money off this.
True.
There's no money in this.
True.
The pay sucks. It's terrible. It's terrible. Like they said, well, he driving a brand new Cadillac. I'm like, yeah, because I would say about 55 to 60% of pastors in America are not just bivocational, but like they're so dependent financially on their job. And there's like another 30% that if they do get paid by their church, it's not enough to cover major bills. So most people they're looking at only a 1% that's on TBN or Word Network. That's only a small fraction of what is actually making lucrative money to do ministry. So the first I would say is people think there's money in there, so that we rolling in dough, people's taking the church money. There's no money to take. There's let's keep look. There's none to take. There's none to take. I've been the clerk. I've been the accountant. I've created Excel spreadsheets. There's no money to take. 100%. There's no money to take. And if there is money, what's like we got to put it back. Or if we're not putting it back to cover a bill, we're covering someone else's bills in the church. And that's something that they don't often talk about so many times, that not just the church has paid certain people's bills, but how the pastor went out of their own pocket to pay certain people's bills or buy food for their kids or, clothes for their kids or whatever. They often never talk about that. So the first misconception I would definitely say that people think that there's money in this. There is no money in this. Absolutely no. None. And if you're doing it for that, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to quit.
Yeah. And to elaborate on that, my dad gave he had to give $100,000 out his retirement to keep the church going.
Wow.
He didn't get salary for years. He just recently started back getting salary. So I think he was giving and giving and giving over the years, putting in honestly more than he was receiving. Because we all know when we don't go to church, we don't pay tithes. That's just a factual thing about us. Most of us don't pay tithes if we're not actually in the building, or, hey, I can skip this week. So things of that nature. But for me, I would say that I think a big misconception is that we want to do everything in the church. We want to be in charge. We want to be over everything. We want to be the ones leading worship. We want to be the ones teaching Bible class. We want to be the ones, like Pastor Vito said, the clerk, administration. It's not that we want to. It's that a lot of times that we're the only ones that are consistent in doing it. The consistency, because we are PK kids, so we have the heart of the pastor for real. Everyone calls your parents dad and mom. I know all of us had heard that, dad, that's my dad, that's my mom. In reality, they are not.
Correct.
They're your spiritual mom and father. But when it comes down to it, don't get me wrong, there are people that love their pastors like they are their parents. Right. But when it's all said and done, when they get upset, in my experience over the years, we were the last one standing.
Mhm.
And we had to take positions that we weren't qualified for. We were learning as we were going, and because we were PK kids, they expected us to know what to
Mhm.
do or how to act because, and that's a whole other subject, because we were PK children, you
Mhm.
know. So for me, it's just more of they thought that we wanted to be over everything and take over the church, and we had our own little secret society that we only let certain people in, which was not true. You just had to have a circle that you could trust,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know, as the first family. Everybody can't be in your nuclear, which is a whole other subject, but I'll just leave that there.
That's good. That's
You
good.
talking? You talking good already?
Yeah, that's good. What about you, Barnes?
I I would say just that we're not immune to all of the same issues and vices and sins and pressures that everybody else experiences in their day to day. I don't, pastors and pastors' kids and pastors' wives, they get put on pedestals. And I don't know, I just felt like people viewed us differently and viewed my family differently. Like, hey, well, that's the pastor's family. So we know that like their family's not dysfunctional. When in reality, my family was just as dysfunctional, maybe more dysfunctional than everybody else's. Now, maybe we learned being pastors' kids how to hide that a little bit better.
Mhm.
Um,
That's good.
like you learn how to be a chameleon and adapt around different people. You kind of have to do that because you're just around so many people in the church all the time.
Mhm.
But yeah, our families are not perfect. Certainly not more perfect than anybody else's.
I would think that was like what you just said, probably was number one.
Mm.
Yeah.
See,
I really do.
I call that the clergy code switch.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I call it, the clergy code switch, where
Yeah.
you're at home and your siblings, you playing around. Oh, you punch my yeah, and word starts flying. They say, hey, such a church going on,
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you
Or,
flip that switch
even,
and you
yeah,
turn it on, and then when they leave,
yeah,
you right back doing what you
yeah,
was doing.
yeah.
The
Yeah,
code switch.
or even knowing that your parents are hurting and you got
Hmm.
to come in that atmosphere and act
Hmm.
like everything is okay. You still got to
Mhm.
function. You got to
Mhm.
function through your grieving, through your hurt, through your anger. You got to function.
Mhm.
And you got to function, stand still. When you walk in, you got to look like the perfect family.
Hmm.
And that's, and I think things are changing now because the way pastors are looking at things are changing. How my parents actually came back and apologized to us.
Mhm.
Mm.
On my mom's deathbed, that was one of the last things she said to me, that she was sorry, and if she could go back and redo some of the things that she did, spending more time with family, us traveling, not our traveling just being with the church, you know, things of that nature. I really don't have memories of traveling with my parents, just us.
Mm.
I think I can remember one trip to Florida. Angie has a little bit more memory because they were getting it more in her time.
Mm.
But because I'm like 11 years older than Angie, but with me and my older sister Michelle, we didn't get that.
Mhm.
We were church, 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 church.
Mhm.
We were church. We were Kojic at one time, so we were
Okay.
Oh yeah.
district, state convention. So we didn't get that. So I don't really have memories of traveling with my parents like that. I have memories of the church, and they're great memories because
Mhm.
we had a ball. But just that part of my parents, we didn't get that. And my mom actually apologized for that. So what you said is so true. She actually apologized for that.
I,
So
so, Rochelle, you brought up something that made me think about this when you said that there's so many different people in the church who view your parents as like surrogate fathers or surrogate mothers.
mhm.
And I I think one thing that was frustrating because our parents had to be so involved and had to step in and be that figure for so many different people in the church.
Mhm.
Sometimes as their kid, like we had needs that we didn't feel like were being met, but had to watch our parents go above and beyond to meet the needs of
Absolutely.
other children who didn't have parents in their lives, or their parents were going through something, they were sick, or whatever it may be.
That's real.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's real.
Absolutely.
That's super real. So one of the things that I think about is just the phrase preacher's kid. Uh, and it's unique because you don't, maybe these conversations are happening, but I'm not acquainted with them. But you don't hear conversations about the dentist's kid or the
Uh-uh.
I don't know, the pharmacist's kid or whatever. Uh, and so there there's a really unique situation that we're put in as preachers' kids, where it's almost uh, the level of scrutiny that we're put under is almost akin to a family that holds like a public office, right?
Absolutely.
So, maybe a judge or a mayor or a senator or something
Hmm.
of the sort. Like the level of exposure that our family has to the general public uh, is it's unique because a lot of again, you're not hearing conversations about the electrician's kids. You know what I'm saying? That's just not something that it's not a conversation that at least I'm not privy to. But you do have conversations about the judge's child or
The police
you know
chief.
the police chief, right? You
Mm.
have those conversations, but I think there's another element that is added that I think maybe it was Rochelle that mentioned. There's a moral
Mhm.
element that's added on top of the ministry family that may or may not be present for the family of someone who holds a state office. And so the
Mhm.
pressure is there for you know pastors' kids right from the very beginning, especially if your dad or if your mom and dad were in ministry together, especially if they had a level of notoriety in the community. Because I can remember like just being out and I got a past like anybody else does. Uh, but I can remember being out and uh, coming back home and my dad telling me everything that I had done while I was out because somebody was watching me. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And so that level of scrutiny was there, like right from the very beginning. Now, I want to transition us a little bit uh, and kind of segue into what I mentioned was, I've got a past. Now, I'm not about to go TMZ and, spill the beans about every horrible thing that I've done. But let's talk about, though, the PK stereotype.
Mhm.
And I know that y'all already know what I'm talking about. I don't have to even describe it anymore than that. But I will for, maybe those who are in the audience who don't know what the PK stereotype is. And so kind of the PK stereotype is that we'll put on the act in front of the general public, but behind closed doors, we are buck wild.
Mhm.
We are like out there. You know what I mean? And so that's kind of, in a short way of describing it, that is the PK stereotype. Now, uh unfortunately, some of us, myself included, have lived into that stereotype. You know what I'm saying? Oh, but do you believe, though, for yourself, there's any truth to the PK stereotype? And did you personally have a rebellious streak?
Um, I believe that the PK stereotype dehumanizes us
Hmm,
because it takes away our ability to experience life as if we're not normal human beings like everyone else.
that's a good word, brother.
Um, how I view it is this: it's being a PK is like being part of a zoo, and people are watching you through this glass, and they watch everything that you do, and it's just normal stuff that human beings do. They're watching you grow. They're watching your ups and their micro. They're just glued in on what's happening, just in awe and enthused by you, and you're just trying to live life normally. And whenever you do something out of the way or in a way that they're not used to, it's like it scares them, like, oh, what's going on? But I'm like, I have instances, and then I have friends of mine where it's like the people who are trying to keep tabs are often the worst ones, the worst perpetrators. So case in point, I had a female friend of mine, real good friend, like a sister to me. She's a PK. She said that she, this back in the day when Walmart was 24/7. Don't you miss those days with 24/7? But there was in Walmart. There was in Walmart. She was in Walmart with her male cousin, and there was a member of a church that was watching her, and that person was watching her told her parents that, oh, she was in Walmart in the middle of the night with this boy. Mm. But that was her cousin. But the woman that's talking smack about her, she's cheating on her husband. So we see it's like, wait, what's going on here? What's happening here? So often I feel like there is a projection of a standard that they're not even willing to meet. They're not even willing to meet that expectation they put on the pastor or on that family, when that expectation is for all believers everywhere at the same time. Not just me because I have the collar or my dad has the collar. It's for you too, because you proclaim Christ as well. So we're all beholden to this standard. Everybody is beholden to this standard. So it is often pushed upon us to carry a lot of weight very early, at an early age, where we feel like we can't do anything. So oftentimes we break away to just experience life outside of church. Because many of our lives, like what you said, many of our lives has always been church. For most of us, our vacations were church conferences and convocations. Those are our vacations, right? Now, I was blessed where I did get to have vacation with my parents. And I think because we weren't from here, we were our own family. We were our own unit. So we had that closeness where we could steal away, where we could go where we need to go. And my parents even protected me. One of the outlets that I had personally for that was dancing, hip-hop dancing. I love the hip-hop dance. Matter of fact, I learned how to hip-hop dance in the church because we had a hip-hop church, Christian hip-hop dance group. So I danced at the talent show in high school, and there was one lady that was really, really churchy or whatever. My parents were watching me, was like, I can't believe your son is doing this, da 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 da. And my dad said, no, he's in high school, he's a child, and he's gonna live his life. Mm-hmm. He has my permission to live his life. So just to think that we have to ask permission to live life. Like, we really have to have permission to live life and to experience life. But it's that experience of life that actually draws us closer to Christ for ourselves. Because many of us got Jesus vicariously through our parents, but we didn't have it for ourselves. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't until we experienced life and go through the ups and the downs and situations, we got an appreciation for who Jesus was for ourselves. So I would say to anybody, is there a truth to it? It depends on the lens that you view it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you're in the zoo and you looking at them in their habitat, you think it's normal. But to know that the animals know that that's not their natural environment. It's that was an environment that was made for them. So being a preacher's kid was an environment that was made for us. It wasn't something that we chose.
That's such a big deal, like not being allowed to live authentically or feel like you can live authentically because you are the fish in the fish bowl or the animal in the zoo. But if you can't live authentically, then how can you develop an authentic relationship with Jesus?
Right.
100%.
I guess I can come from it from a PK's kid who's a female. I feel like that's a double standard too. With my brothers, myself.
Yeah.
I feel like more was placed upon the females, the girls. The brothers could kind of do the brothers, you know what I mean? They could kind of do what they do and nobody would say anything.
Mm.
But the girls, we were more apt to get pregnant, things of that nature. I got pregnant at 18. I was on my way out of high school, and I remember being scared to tell my mother. So I told my auntie, and I remember the church shutting up on that so bad. Oh, I knew she was fast. Oh, I knew she was a little, you know. Some of the other parents in the church had something to say about me, but their daughters had children before me.
Hmm.
Or and things of that nature. So I just remember that, and I remember feeling so shame to have to go sit on the front row and apologize to the church,
Mm.
things of that nature. But some of the guys that had did it before me, they were still on the instruments and stuff. It played with me, and they were also PK children.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe not my parents' PK children, but they were PK children. So that played on me too, that I always felt like it was a stronger standard for us girls in the church.
It definitely
Girls,
was.
period, not just PK children, but definitely us. And I feel like now that I'm older, I'm grown and I'm mature enough, I realize too much is given, much is required. And I do realize that mantles fall. You know, and some of us are destined for that mantle. So our whatever hit us was hitting us greater because of that. But when you're in that space, you don't understand that.
Hmm.
You just really don't understand that. Would I say we are worse? I'm going to say this because we feel like people want us to be some kind of way. Sometimes we push against that
Hmm.
and we run from it. And you know they expect me to be this way. Why not? You know, but I don't think that we are just any worse than their children. I think that a lot of times they put the lens on us to take it off of their children or to take it off of their family.
Ooh, come on, somebody.
I so I think it be those things, and then you have to realize even adults are jealous of children.
Mm.
Sometimes they can see what you're gonna be before you even become it, and because they think that you're coming to take their place, they already trying to destroy you. And then some of it is they don't like their leaders and what they see. They really don't like their leaders. They like what they can get from their leaders. So sometimes they see you might look just like Amos.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying? And and they want what Amos got. So since they can't get to the leader, they'll try to destroy the children. Because
Hmm.
if I can destroy the seed, there's nothing else to go.
Mm-hmm.
If I destroy the seed, I can get the mantle. So it's just a lot that goes into us being PK. It's deep, you
It
know.
is.
And I didn't get that revelation until I got grown and got in God myself, like you said. You
Mhm.
know, God and God myself, and He started revealing things to me. You know, they hate the seed, so they try to destroy the seed from their end, and a lot of them that try to destroy the seed are gone from the church. If you look at your parents' church, a lot of people who try to destroy it are gone. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just things of that nature, but we are not the worst to answer that question. We can be something serious, but we are not the worst.
Look, I say this. I say be nice to PK kids because we know who your real daddy is.
Sound like the Gospel of Matthew. Like
That's not
talking to the Pharisees.
like please be nice to us because every conversation that you had with our parents, we was outside the door listening. We know what's going on in your home before you actually know.
You didn't have to be outside the door. They were talking loud enough where you can hear.
Yes, they were.
That's very true.
Loud enough. You don't have to say
Like,
crying.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like they want to talk. I'm like, please be nice. I know who your real daddy is. Please don't do that to me. I'm I'm saving your whole family by keeping my mouth shut. That's what I tell people. Like,
You
please.
know-
And you're keeping yourself saved.
Yeah. You know, so me and my wife were actually kind of, as I was preparing for this, I was just kind of going back through some of my memories about some of the things that I was exposed to as a PK. And like I would know like whose parents were on drugs. I would know whose
Right.
parents were kind of like alcoholics. Their own children wouldn't know, but because we're somebody's coming and banging on our door at 2 in the
In the
morning,
morning.
and I see like, hey, that's such and such's dad, you know, um, there was just a lot of things, and we're gonna talk about that.
That's
We're gonna
another
get into
subject.
that.
We got that's another
No,
subject.
no,
Yeah.
no. We're gonna get into that too.
Yeah.
But I do want to bring Barnes in as well. Did you have any thoughts about the whole PK stereotype at all?
Yeah, I mean, but I've just really been enjoying listening to Rochelle and James.
Yeah, absolutely. They're
And
killing it.
and Rochelle, you brought something. So earlier today, I was thinking about this, about how most of the other PKs that I know are men, and I don't know that, other than my sister, I don't know that many females that are
Mhm.
PKs. And I don't want to speak for her, but like listening to some of the things that you just said about double standards with women in the church, and like that story that you shared about being 18 years old and being on the front row of the church and having to publicly apologize when the same standard wasn't being placed on boys in the church, parallels so much with things that I know she went through in the church. And like my sister hasn't stepped foot in a church in I don't know how many years
Mhm.
because of experiences just like that one. And it's just a good reminder that like the female experience in the church is just totally different than what men experience, unless I get to sit down and hear stories like that. Um, I wish more stories like that were shared, so that people can really understand what it feels like to be a girl who grows up in the church, um, and be treated that way.
Mhm.
But yeah, the stereotype. So, my dad was in full time ministry until I was in eighth grade. And so I didn't really get into a lot of trouble up until that point. And then my dad left the church, resigned from the church, and what was kind of like a very public thing when he had to resign. And that led to my parents' marriage falling apart. They ended up separating and then divorcing right around that same time. So I did go buck wild, but it happened after my parents' marriage split. So I don't know if I can blame it on, being a PK or watching what, you know, happened with my family. But I will
Okay.
say that um, one of the, I think what was so hard for me about that and what made me go so wild was I kind of bought in. So like when I said earlier, like we're not perfect, I kind of bought into that when I was a
Mhm.
kid.
Mhm.
I really thought my family was perfect. Um,
Mhm.
I bought into the illusion that like my parents' marriage was perfect. And so when all that happened, um, it was like it just shattered my whole worldview. And at that point, it was just like, all right, I'm going to do whatever I want to do now.
Mhm.
And so I did, but I think like y'all all made great points, like pushing back, kind of like not wanting to fit into the mold. Like you're going to place me in this mold. I'm going to show you, what I'm capable of. That's the danger in it, is there's just so much outside pressure that eventually it's just going to burst,
Mhm.
no matter who you are.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And it might not
absolutely.
bust right then. It might be years down the road
Mhm.
when you bust.
Right.
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 I mean, for me, even now, can we speak in in this grown 50-year-old woman's body? I still find myself
50
saying,
where?
"Oh, I'm
50
50.
where?
I'm
Stop
50
it.
50.
where?
I'm
Stop it.
50. I'm 50." Now, but in this, seriously, I find myself when I feel myself wanting to do certain things, or say, even on social media, I be wanting to clap back, and I'll be like, let me take that down, Pastor Sledge, or my dad might be watching. Pastor Sledge is my pastor now. So he might be watching. I want to get that person, he shouldn't have said, and I have to, and I'm still thinking in my head, what would my parents think? That
Mhm.
might sound crazy, but
Mhm.
I don't want to embarrass my mom, and she's gone. So I'm still conscious of those things because of who she was. Not so much of myself because I want to get down with you, but I push it back and I think about, girl, who you are in the community, who you are. You can't say certain things. You can't do. That's still embedded in my conscience. So I think, even in who I chose for a husband, and my daddy gonna like him, things of that nature. Can I take him home? So I think, as a PK's child, we think harder than a lot of other people do.
Mhm.
We think more solid. We think about the church. We think about the community. We think about our parents. We have a lot to think about.
Not only
We
the
think
Image
too
is
parents,
much.
but the
image
weight
is
of the last
everything.
name. The weight
Yeah,
of that last
the way
name.
the last thing. But image is everything for a PK's child.
Mhm.
And you self-consciously don't even realize it. Some days even when I'm dressing to go out with my husband, I want to be sexy, but I don't want to be overly sexy because I'm still a minister. I'm still, those things. So now I'm coming, now I realize, okay, take a breath. It's okay. You're going out, this your man,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know. Um,
Yeah.
so what I post on social media might not be something. I might have wore something else too, but I know not to put it on social media.
Yeah. Oh
If
yeah.
that makes sense. When I go
Yeah.
swimming, I'm not that girl that's gonna put the whole bathing suit in the water on it. That's just not me. I'm not knocking nobody that does that, but I'm not going to do that. But I got it. Trust me.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Just it's just things of that nature. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Rochelle, I'm so glad. Like I am overjoyed and thankful that you were able to join us on this call because I
Mhm.
intentionally when we set out to record this pod, I had two
Mhm.
guys and two women because I needed the perspectives from all sides.
Mhm.
Because the experience I've got, I'm an only son. I've got four sisters, and their
Mhm.
experience was completely different
Mhm.
from mine, and so
Mhm.
definitely appreciated, having, a variety of perspectives because we needed that. We need to
It's an
hear.
honor to be here. Yes. Yes.
Oh no, the honor is mine. Now, somebody put in the chat, in light of something that you mentioned, Rochelle,
Mhm.
that we need to do a episode on women in the church, and I think it's Marilyn. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that's right. That name correctly, Marilyn. That is coming. It's definitely coming. Barnes and I, we talked about this, and so that episode is coming. So women in the church, and we're gonna do an episode, uh, uh, and we're gonna have a conversation with first ladies because that's a
Mhm.
whole other experience
That's a
in and
whole
of
nother
itself
experience.
as well. And so yeah, that's coming. Now, uh, we've had these experiences as PKs, like we've already kind of shared, um, some of the things that we were exposed to as children. But do you believe that in light of the things that you were exposed to, that you have trauma from being a PK? Who
Absolutely.
who wants to take that?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The,
What?
the,
So
the
how does
people
What?
pleasing. Hold on, the
yeah.
people pleasing,
Yeah.
the anger issues, the overthinking. Hold on, you got more time? Hold on, man, need more now.
Yeah.
Hold on. Like
So how
first
how
off,
does it,
that
James,
people.
how does it impact you, and also like how are you working to resolve it as well? So let's touch on all of that. How does it impact you now? How did it impact you when you were younger, and how are you working to resolve it? But go ahead.
The people pleasing in regards to protecting not just your reputation but your whole family's reputation at 6,
Mm, at
7.
6 years old.
You know what I'm saying? You got to protect your whole family. The weight of the last name at 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 before you even got hair down there. You're already thinking
Mm,
about how am I gonna how am I gonna hurt my parents if I do this, or you know how is it gonna affect them or the church or whatever. You're thinking about this and you're singing Barney still, you know.
Did you say before you got hair down there?
That's
Yes.
what he said.
Yes,
That's what he said.
yes.
He definitely said it.
Yes, before you hit puberty, you're thinking about these things before your body even develops. You're already expecting trauma before you even fully develop, before your body even is ready to produce. You're
They're
already
trying to make you think and act like an adult.
yes,
Absolutely.
yes. And then on top of that, that form of thinking, the people pleasing and the seeking of acceptance and validation births anger issues. There's a good reason why a lot of preachers' kids have anger issues. I tell people personally, I tell people this. When it comes to me, you get two things. You can get an open palm with olive oil or a closed fist with Vaseline. Which one do you want? Because which one do you want? Open palm with olive oil or closed fist with Vaseline? Either or, I'm gonna lay hands. Because I watched people disrespect my parents to my face, and they studied for them, they prayed for them, they helped them, and then gave them nothing. They were left empty. Look, come on here. Wait, hold on here.
Oh my
Oh,
Jesus.
right
Oh
over
my
here.
Jesus.
Look, I'm ready, son. I'm already there. Okay,
Keep it on me. Keep it on
keep
me.
it on you. Okay, I got that, and I got something else. You know what I'm saying? Like just in case. Just in case, because it's like
I ain't gonna pull it out, but I got something else too.
look, you know what I'm saying? Look, okay, look, I gotta sew it in the brick. Okay, look, I gotta hear it already. Okay, but
You know what I'm saying?
but it's
She has saved a lot of people.
Look.
Let me say that.
Amen.
Look, Apostle Dr. Carter Vito, God rest his soul. He saved a lot of folk from me. He saved a lot of folk from me when I wanted to go off.
Yeah,
Uh,
amen
lot
to
of
that,
people.
brother. Amen.
And the anger issues, like just being angry at the disrespect and the dishonor, and the fact, because what makes you angry is that you're going without so they can have, and they don't appreciate it. They're getting moments and time that you should be getting, that they're getting, and they're squandering it. And then you're gonna talk smack about my folks? Look, I'm 32. I'm 32 years old. I will still flip some tables over some card or some truth.
oh my.
Still to this day, I love the Lord. I'm saved. I speak in tongues. I got all. I do. Talk about card and truth.
Yeah.
Talk about it, especially folk I know that they helped. And you talk about the preacher's kid anger issues. You know, Ronda Rousey, right? She was called the baddest woman on the planet in MMA. You know, the first woman to beat her was a preacher's kid.
No, I didn't know.
I can see that. I can see that.
The first person that beat Ronda Rousey was a preacher's kid. I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah, she's taking out all the trauma.
All the trauma, all that trauma. Why do you think I like combat sports? Because it's I can live it vicariously, because we can't go off like we want to. We can't say what we really want to say. We can't do what we really want to do, because if it was their family, they would be justified in their actions. They would probably be clapping, applauding. But the minute it's our family and we see the disrespect and we address the disrespect, then something's wrong with us, and we need prayer, and we need to be sat down. And then I'm like, and every time I go to my dad, I'm like, Dad, why do you allow this? Why don't you say anything? He said, James, something you just got to take to the chin and go on. And I say this when it comes to the trauma. I'm in ministry now. Like I said, I've been in ministry for a good minute. I had the honor of eulogizing my father. I had to do that funeral just the way he taught me how to do everybody else. I did that funeral. I dressed him. I clothed him. I did the obituary. I did all that. I did that,
brother. Yeah.
Okay.
And
me and him already reconciled, because I felt like there was time that I wasn't getting from him because of ministry. We already went through that, and we healed, and we mended before he passed away. But I was sitting down. I was never forget to sit down with my ex-wife and Apostle Gary Taylor, and I came to the conclusion: even though I forgave my father, I didn't forgive the people that hurt him.
Mm.
And that I was pastoring a people and I was preaching to a people that I didn't like.
Mm.
And I was preaching the gospel behind a wall.
Mm.
So I had to say this at my dad's graveside, the body's laying right there. I had to say, look, I know there's been times I've come across as arrogant or conceited or like a know-it-all or angry. It's not that I was all that. Really, I was scared.
Mm.
Because I was scared that you was going to hurt me like you hurt him.
Mm.
Because I saw what you did to him. And I was going to let you do that to me. But I had to realize that it's impossible to preach a gospel of reconciliation and not reconcile with the people who hurt you.
Amen. Amen.
So I had to do that.
Word.
I had to do that at his graveside.
Mm.
And then some of the people that hurt him, that called him a cult leader, called him a warlock, was sitting right there.
Mm.
And I had to openly say, I forgive you. Because back then you didn't know what you were doing. You were still caught up in your mess. But now time has progressed. You got a little bit wiser. You see what they were trying to do. You just didn't appreciate it.
Mm.
So that trauma made me preach with a wall, trying to preach to reconcile God with man by having reconciled man with man. How can I say that I love the Lord that I don't see, but I hate my neighbor who I see every day? And I hated them church folk. I hated them. I hated them. I hated them nappy ne'er-do-wells. I hated them.
Mm-hmm. I believe you because you said it 4 times.
I did. But
God
God had
he was
to
angry. Angry.
like them PK anger issues. And God had to heal me. He had to heal me from that just so I can preach effectively. And that's when I realized I've been preaching all that time, but my ministry started at my dad's graveside funeral. That's when my ministry started. After I said that, something happened and it just switched for me. So that's how I had to deal with the trauma. Also, therapy. I advise therapy. I'm pro Jesus, pro therapy. Okay, I'm pro both.
Amen.
I'm quick to tell people that the problem that you have going on is between you, a therapist, and Jesus, not me. And you need to go take that over there. I'm quick to say that. So I when it comes to the trauma of it and the shame of the weight of the name, if I do something wrong, it's gonna make my parents look bad, and they gotta carry that shame, and I don't want that. So it's a lot of looking over your shoulder. It's a lot of anger at yourself because you're not meeting up to this standard. It's a lot of anger at other people. It's a lot of being meticulous over everything. Like Rochelle said, being meticulous. Oh, should I do this and how should I do that? And it's all of that at a young age before puberty hits. So this is undoing 20 plus years of trauma in my 30s. That's so I've been about 3 years.
Yeah.
And I'm still undoing it. I think that's the thing I'm learning, that as I'm growing and maturing, that I'm still undoing the trauma. I'm still undoing the stuff that I've learned, the unverbally things that I nonverbal lessons that I've learned in how to navigate these things. That's what I realized about the trauma and how I've dealt with it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah. So,
Right.
so one of the things that myself, like in particular, I have these memories that are like really burned into my mind that I often, kind of revisit, that were kind of traumatic for me. And I think that through therapy, through a Christian community, and through doing my due diligence to uh, actually like allow the gospel to speak into those areas, I've done a lot of recovery. But some of those wounds, you're gonna like I'm gonna carry the scars all my life because again, saw some dark stuff, saw some really really dark things uh, some things that to this day I know that people who I was friends with don't know about their own parents that I know,
Mm.
uh, things of that nature. And so the trauma from being a PK is a real thing. Anybody else feel led to share about the trauma that can come from being a pastor's kid?
I was going to let him go before I spoke because, he kind of stay quiet. So I was going to let him speak a little bit.
Yeah, Barnes, we'll let
Who me?
we'll get you in. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Then I'll
Um,
talk.
um, yeah, I mean, of course, I've got trauma from being a preacher's kid. Yeah, you know, so like listening to James, I feel like my trauma is probably a little bit different because my family got out of the ministry when I was, 14 years old. Um, and it would have been interesting to grow up older in the ministry as you're maturing. You start to see, at a certain age, you start to see the world as it really is. You start to see people as they really are. Um, and I was just like entering into that phase when my dad left the church. But, you know, um, I grew up because I grew up as a preacher's kid. Like when my parents got divorced, it was a very strange experience for me because I grew up believing like we don't believe in divorce, you know, like that's not something we believe in. So certainly this is not happening um, to my family. And because we were a family in the ministry, um, divorce is traumatic no matter what. And I don't want to act like my trauma is any greater than anybody else's because I was a preacher's kid, but I definitely feel like it was amplified um, because we were in the church and my dad was a pastor. It just felt like there were so many more like eyeballs on us. And But I also feel like people were almost scared to talk to us about it. And so there was a period of time when like all of us were hurting. I was hurting.
Mhm.
But again, like because we're the pastor's family who's going through a divorce, it felt strange to everyone to the extent where I feel like people just didn't even know how to talk to me about it when all I really needed and wanted was for people to talk to me about it.
Mhm.
So it just took a long time to kind of recover from that. I don't know that I still have recovered from it, to be honest.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's real.
And so you did experience trauma because that was trauma.
Hmm.
To have to go through that at such a young age, and then that not everything was not everything was, you know, your parents didn't just get divorced. The church played a big part of that.
It did.
So, you know, you know, uh, so yeah. Sorry, my husband. He's trying to show me a shirt. I'm trying to be there. He's trying to show me a shirt. Sorry. But anyway, for me, I also have a therapist on call. Um, and it stems from things of, I had trauma growing up because being the oldest in the house, besides my older sister who moved here when she was in high school, I was here already. Um, I come from my pastor is my bonus dad, but of course we don't call, we don't. He's my dad. He's been raising me since I was like second, no, first grade. So so my sister didn't come here, so I will say that I probably experienced the most trauma than all of my siblings because I've been here since the beginning. Um, we all had our trauma, but I would say that I got to see their trauma in my parents' trauma, my baby sister's trauma. We're expected to handle weight a different way. Um, I can want to share her experience too much, but I saw my sister go through some things with her ex-husband, and um, we were very close to him. We were expected to forgive it and keep going, and we do. We still love him to this day. He's my brother. It took a minute because we still had to forgive what went on, and we were still in church with the people and love the people the same. Um, and it was an incident that happened over and over again. It wasn't a one-time thing. You understand what I'm saying? So to have to forgive those things and to keep going, that sets up in your mind. That's trauma. I got to forgive you like you hadn't just hurt me to where I want to commit suicide. That set up trauma. And for me, some things happened more recently when my mom passed. Um, Trying to say this in a dignified way, my dad remarried in 48 days. Everybody know. We're just gonna put it in 48 days. My mom passed. My dad remarried in 48 days. It, I think I took it the hardest of all the children because I was the one there through it all, helping keeping the church going, carrying the church. So it did something to me. And when I say I showed out, that is an understatement. Um, was all over the city. I was hurt. Some of the things they said I did, I didn't do. I never hit my dad for you people either. But
No, we love that. We
That was
love
some of
that
the
for
things.
you. That's a
That was
great
some of
man.
the. Then I gave him up a little bit again, but no, I'm joking. But it hurt me, my spirit, and so that was trauma for me. That was trauma. I had just lost my mom. Um, we didn't get a chance to experience her essence, like mourn her.
Yeah.
Her scent was taken out the house. Her scent was taken out to the church. And these are things that I have discussed with my father. So, this is not and he's apologized since, and you know, all of that. So this can help somebody else. Um, when you're going through things, it's a way to do anything.
Mhm.
And that goes for pastors' children. It's a way to do everything. Um, and I was just like, how can he do this? How can he tell me God is a keeper and he couldn't be kept? At least for 6 months to give us time to go through, you
Mhm.
know. So that played with my mind. The person that I put all my I thought my dad was king. You know, I was ride or die PCOM. And anybody that know me knows that was my grip. Still am. Not there anymore in ministry, but that's still my people. Love them to death. So I went through that and I had to literally get in therapy for that because my family was tore up from that. And so I had to get in therapy and I had to talk to God and pray. This just keeps falling out. This ain't help me now. I had to talk to God. I had to pray. I had to say, what's more important? Do I want my family to be tore up? And then I heard my mom say, girl, I am gone. I am in heaven. I already told you that your father, he needs that.
Mhm.
And then after speaking to him, my mama was sick for a long time. So as children, even grown children, there's things that you don't know that goes on in a marriage. So there were things that they had already discussed that I will never, but God spoke to me and gave me peace of that. So now we're mending our family, but I had to go and get healed first,
Mhm.
if all of that makes sense. So that was trauma for me as a grown woman. That was trauma for me, not to mention the things that Pastor Vito said that you go through as a child. And then you got to forgive people that that did stuff to you, did stuff to your parents, and you constantly forgiving and forgiving and forgiving, but nobody's even saying, I'm sorry.
Man.
So that's a whole nother ball game. And then I carried that in my first marriage to my first husband, to Jones. We were together for 18 years. We were married for 12, but a lot of things I carried the weight of the church in that marriage, and it wasn't even my ministry.
Mm.
So I put a lot of burdens on him for my parents' church.
Mm.
So that was trauma for me on what I could have did better in that marriage. Just things of that nature that carried over. So I had to get therapy for that. Then I got with my husband now, who is wonderful. And now it's still a balance for me of he's not into church like that. So but he loves the Lord and he loves his wife. He's the best husband that I could ever have. But it's that one little element, and I almost let that mess me up. Well, we're unevenly yoked. I had that scripture all out of whack because he wasn't going to church with me. So I had to. So it's just a lot of things that I think that we carry that we don't realize is from trauma. Until I started talking to my therapist, and she's like, "Well, why he got to go to church with you every Sunday? Why is he a bad man? Does he beat on you? Does he not love the Lord? Does he not love God? Does he not treat you like God treats the church?" And my husband does that. So I had to reassess that. So it's just a lot that I think that we have to work through as PKs, as humans, period, but really as PKs. Because if you heard the situation, it was not a good situation for me. So it was like, those type of things. And then I had to come back and show face again in the space where I, you know, did what I did, and we had the church doing this. So for me, because no matter what my father did, I was still in the wrong. Because the Bible says, honor thy mother and your father, or your days gonna be numbered. See, I got that word in my heart. So I knew I needed to go back and get that straight quickly and in a hurry. And then in that, it helped my dad to apologize to me about some things. And now we're in a good space. So that's, yeah.
Michelle, man, thank you so much for being so candid on this
Mm-hmm.
call. Like I am old. I don't know that you know this, but my dad's situation and your dad's situation is they are like eerily similar in the sense of how no shade, but how quickly they remarried after uh, the death of their wives. And so, man, you helped me by sharing the way that you did. And so, again, thanks for sharing that. And thank all of y'all because y'all are laying it bare. And I know that this is going to help some people because we're not the only ones. Because I've been looking in the chat and some people have shared, that they've had similar experience and things. And
Uh-huh.
so I know that we are helping some people, and this recording will help some people
Uh-huh.
as well. And so again, thanks to you guys. Now, um, one of the comments that I'll make, and then I'll take us on to the next question. One of the things that precipitated the trauma for me in particular is seeing the effectiveness of my dad's ministry working for other people, but maybe not seeing it in our own household. You know, that cause because I think Barnes, you said, well, we don't believe in divorce, and to see other people's marriages healed after having gone through something, but then not seeing that same effective ministry happening for
Hmm.
us in our own household, that
Hmm.
was very traumatic for me. Now, although my parents were together up until my mom passed, there were other instances of
Hmm.
things seeing like, okay, this healing is happening here, reconciliation is happening here for other people that my mom and dad both are ministering to, but why isn't that happening for us? I didn't understand that. That was very tough for me. And
Very
again, some,
confusing.
oh yeah,
Very
absolutely.
confusing because you know you grow up believing all of these things and it becomes your entire worldview. And yeah, you
Mm,
do see it work for other people, but you almost feel like as a preacher's kid, well, like if it's going to work for anybody, it
mm.
should work for us.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
and and
The
then to see
professional
it
Christians.
right, and then to see it not work. And when you're young, it just causes immense confusion, and it had me questioning everything about everything I thought I believed, everything that I thought my parents believed and that our family stood for, and this, that, or the other. And it did take a long time. Like James brought up the point earlier about authenticity and living authentically, and that having an effect on your own relationship with Jesus. And so like that event in my life, seeing that, like, okay, or questioning, were my parents living their faith authentically? Like, where does that come into play with this? Am I living my faith authentically? And then just creating all those questions. I mean, it took years and years into my adulthood before I really feel like I developed my own personal relationship with Jesus. It took a long time for that. I kind of had to get away, like talking about trauma. I had to get away and work through a lot of those issues before I was really able to discover Jesus for myself.
Yeah, that's a good word. And it's a good segue into the next question, which is, are you still walking with Jesus? But in light of that, did you walk away or think about walking away due to your experiences as a preacher's kid? Now, James, to you in particular, we had this conversation a little bit before the call started. I know that you are still walking with the Lord because you're a pastor. And so, whenever you take the moment to answer the question, I want you to talk about how in the world you are in ministry after seeing everything that your dad went through. Like, how in the world did you say, yeah, I think I want to do that too?
Two reasons. Either I'm crazy or I'm Holy Ghost full enough to do the job. I'm called to do the job. That's the only two rationalities I can have for that. I'm either completely insane or I'm just definitely called anointed for this. That's the only two options I got that can tell you I'm doing this, because it's
because it ain't no money in it, right?
Not ain't no money. It's overrated. It's overrated. People literally fight for titles and microphones, and I'm like, just go on Amazon, get you a Bluetooth microphone, hook it up to your Bluetooth speaker in your church, in your house, and preach a little heart silly. Knock yourself out. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. The only reason why I can say I'm still here is that he called me. There were others that started out with me at around the same age preaching as me. They're not preaching anymore. There were those who started off later than me and spiked up, and I was under them, or you couldn't even see me. They're not even there anymore. I'm looking around, like, I'm still the most consistent out of my age group that started off. I'm still here. So I have to be called. That's no other reason. I have to be called for this position. Because if it was me, I would not be doing this. Like, if the Lord told me, James, you have 5 minutes to reject the call, all the promises of God, all the promises I have for you is still gonna happen. You're gonna be a pew member for the rest of your life. You ain't gonna do nothing. I'm burning my license donation papers right now. I'm cutting off the live and I'm burning jokers right now. The only reason why I haven't burnt them is I feel like once I burn them, I turn away, it gonna say I'm not a pastor no more, I'm a bishop. And I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that to myself. I'm not gonna do that to myself. But did I walk away? Yes, I walked away. I walked away in college. Of course, I grew up Pentecostal charismatic, Kojic leanings, proto full gospel Baptist, in New Orleans before Bishop Morton came on the scene. So I had a lot of my faith was through my parents, not through Christ himself. And what really took me off the edge was the murder of Trayvon Martin. and how it hurt me because I was seeing just within the African American context, I was saying, okay, you want black men to be your armor bearers, your security guards, your janitors, and all this stuff to fill your church to give it more legitimacy, but you won't even fight for black men. I'm talking about the black churches. You won't even fight for black men. So why should I fight for you? Why should I even care about you? At least for your agenda, fight for us. But you're not even fighting for us for your own agenda. Now, I'm not knocking any local black church that was involved in the movement. Of course, there are always black churches involved in movements like this. I'm referencing more so people with major platforms that can really get things rolling. They don't say nothing, and it hurt me. It hurt me. So I felt like, well, if that's how you view me, and once again, I'm already angry at the church folk already. So it's like, you know what? And then I took philosophy 101 and hit with the Euthyphro dilemma. That bit me in my noggin. So I was like, what is life? So I end up actually becoming a deist, which means I believed in a God. I just didn't believe in organized religion. But I did believe in a God because I experienced miracle signs and wonders as a young age. I've seen demons being cast out. So I knew there was a God. It's just that the Christianity thing I wasn't hip to. So I ended up becoming a Hebrew Israelite, and reading their stuff and having Shabbat with the guys. And honestly, that was the first time I was actually right. That was the first time I actually read the Bible, was being a Hebrew Israelite.
Interesting.
Like, for real. So God actually used that as a way for me to actually start opening it up and reading it. But the issue I was having was, as I was reading it, I'm still going to church. And not just still going to church, but I'm looking up people smarter than me because I'm reaching a block with my dad and with the Hebrew Israelites. So I'm like, there's something that's missing. Like something the math is not mathing. I need to learn from people smarter than me. So I looked up Ravi Zacharias, God rest his soul. Frank Turek, got a book autograph signed by him. John Lennox, John Piper, and I have a charismatic background, but I'm leaning more so into the Reformed Calvinist. So like my guy Paul Washer, I love that man. That's my guy. You cannot. I would defend Paul Washer till my death. You cannot say one bad thing about Paul Washer. We're gonna have it out. Okay.
There you go.
I love Paul Washer. That's my dude. So it was through that and through the reading of the word for itself, which led me back to Christianity, to which got me into apologetics in the urban context. So now I can address the Hebrew Israelite, the Nuwabians, the Temple of Moor Science, the Nation of Islam, and all the 5% Nation, all that. So it got me into that. And as I was studying to be a preacher again, and then another moment was when Mike Brown was killed. And I was praying, I was saying to the Lord, I was like, you see, the church ain't doing this, the church ain't doing this, the church ain't doing this, the church ain't doing this. What are you gonna do about it, God? You know what God said? He said, I did do something about it. I said, what? He said, I made you. He said, that burden that you have, that's your assignment. So either you're gonna fulfill the assignment or sit down and shut up. So I said, okay, like a dummy. I said, okay. And like I said, I became the pastor that I needed. I needed an intelligent young man that could take the time to dissect the word, not just give me goosebumps, but let's address this intellectually. Let's address this scholarly with the Holy Spirit. Let's do the work. Let's break it down. What's going on in the culture at this time? So I became the pastor that I needed. And through that, it was able to keep me through my hard times. And within 2 years, I lost a high-paying job, went through depression, anxiety, suicidal ideations, people dying on me, like people in our church dying. And then my father, I watched him slowly deteriorate. I was there for the whole thing. Essentially, I had to pull the plug. Many people know that. I had to pull the plug on my dad. That was my call.
Yeah, that's tough.
Right? And then funeralize him. And then a few months later, my wife filed for divorce. So this is just back to back to back to back to back. So it was, if I didn't have Jesus, I don't think you'll be seeing me.
Yeah, man.
If I didn't go back, I don't think there would have been no revival that God allowed me to do by His grace and mercy for the Steve Perkins movement. That would have never happened. It was through the hard time that I got to know Him for myself, not from what my daddy taught me, not from what the Hebrew Israelites said of that one. It was me and Him in the Bible. I said, let's figure this out. And that's what has kept me. And I'm looking back and realizing like it wasn't me. It wasn't me that got me through all that stuff. It wasn't by my own power. It was by His Spirit, solely by His Spirit. It wasn't by my own intellect. It wasn't by any of that. It wasn't by my personality. It was by His Spirit, in His Spirit alone.
That's good.
So yes, I'm walking with Jesus because where else can I go? Where can I go after all that I've experienced and been through? Where can I go?
He's got the words of life. Yeah.
Where can I go?
Yeah, that's real. That's good, man.
So, and then after that is like, and as much as He's defended me and protected me, I'm like, let me do the same for you. So the tenacity that I have for the gospel, the love I have for the way I preach it, it's because He defended me in that way. I'm reflecting the same way He defended me. So that's part of the reason why I preach, because really, I'm crazy, I'm called, and I love Him.
Man, praise God. That's good, brother. That's real good.
Well, I in my younger years, of course not. I didn't walk away from the ministry or God because it was expected for me to be there, if that makes sense, to do what I was doing in the church. Well, after my mom passed, had issues, and then I went to where I am now, to Victory, and I was there for 10 months, and then I went back to Progressive from 20, went back to Progressive because God told me to go home and get things straight. So I did, and then God released me after about 9 months being back home. And then I took a sabbatical from the church. I never took a sabbatical from God, but I took a sabbatical from the church because I needed to. I just got back into church the end of last year. I would go periodically and visit different churches. My godparents' churches. My cousins, which are Neglisha, them at Redeeming Love, I went there. I was going to Convergence, Pastor Candy, but I was running from Pastor Sledge because I knew he could read me. I knew he was my covering. God had already told me he was my covering. And God will speak to you, and but I just needed a sabbatical from church. I was tired of doing things church way, so I had to take a sabbatical from church and the religious aspect of it, but I'm a church girl, if that makes sense in any kind of way. So I missed it. I missed the worship. I missed I missed all of that. But I also needed somebody who could not only but dissect that word for me and break it down and speak in intellectual terms, but where I can understand, because if you speak in all, understand it is in vain. What Pastor Sledge does adore him in his. He's just.
Michelle, you kind of breaking up on us a little bit. I want to make sure we hear everything that you got to say.
You're breaking up on us.
You're breaking up on us. I want to make sure we get everything that you've got to say.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
But so I knew where I needed to be, but I took a sabbatical for about 3 years from church. And the danger of that for me was I got comfortable, and it was a push for me to go back, into the church. And so I'm really just now getting back into working ministry. And I have turned down so many speaking engagements and so many panels and things of this nature because I don't want to be up speaking over people out of hurt and anger.
Turning this one down.
No, I'm back now. But I didn't want to be on nobody's pulpit or on nobody's engagements speaking out of hurt and anger. I would do stuff for my friend Tiffany Lamia if she had a panel or something like that. I would get on there because that's my best friend, and I would get on there, and she knew what would trigger me, so we kind of didn't, you know, or she knew how to flunk, you know. Now I'm healed and I can speak freely on my issues and what I did wrong and things of that nature. I don't just concentrate on what other people did wrong because there are things that I could have done better too, you know, to handle situations. But I did walk away. And I tell anybody, I will tell anybody, just because you walk away from the church don't mean you walking away from God. It does don't make nobody make you feel bad because you needed a break. Because if you don't take a break, sometimes you will break.
Amen. That's a good
so
word.
In the church, if it's a solid rock, it's gonna stand with or without you. It's not gonna fall if it's a solid rock. But when you come back, you're gonna be better and you're gonna be able to help build that foundation. But if you stay and you full of trauma and you broken and you angry, you just spilling that stuff out on people, no matter what platform you take. Well, people will be able to feel your anger and your hurt and your despair. So I refused to touch a mic for about 4 years. I didn't touch a mic. I didn't direct nobody's choir. I didn't teach nobody's songs. I that's even pertaining to Steve Perkins' brother. That's even pertaining to the movement because I have trauma going on. Be a leader. Now I come.
Rochelle, you're breaking up on us again, and you're saying something real good that I think the people
Can
need
you
to
hear me?
hear. So you can now.
I said, can you hear me? That's even with I was talking about Nick is my brother-in-law. That's Steve Perkins' brother. And I had been asked several times to come in and do different things. But because I was going through my own trauma and my own hurt, can you hear me? Okay. I didn't want to step in and be in the middle of that. Now, I would come to the things, but as far as being part of the leadership, no. I feel like when you are hurting and you're angry and stuff, you don't need to take part in nothing like that because you're just going to spew that on. So I'm just now getting back into the community stuff and all of that stuff. And I still do not do it in my Decatur area because that's still a trigger for me. And I know it. So while I'm working through that healing, I might work Huntsville, I might work Athens, but I know Decatur is a trigger for me. And when you know what's a trigger for you and you're still healing, you need to heal whole before you go back in. So I don't know if that's a word for somebody, but get whole. Because you can't do nothing half. You can't do anything half. Get whole before you go back into something. So, but I'm back in the church now, but I was not for about 4 years.
If I can interject, I'm gonna say this. I think one of the biggest problems facing many people in the church, and especially PKs, is that many of us were introduced to church before we were introduced to Jesus.
Listen.
And that we had to
on how to do church.
We had to unlearn church just so we can learn Jesus. When really we should learn Jesus so he can give us context on what the church is. And I think that is what dealing with trauma and undoing church to learn Jesus is a whole nother journey. And analyze worth it. It's the best thing you could do is when you learn Jesus for real. But I think that is what is hurting us as a demographic, because people always talk about church hurt. I'm saying, look, PKs are the president of the church hurt club. Okay, like we like, hey, don't tell us nothing about no church hurt. We know it's going on our house, the church, and your house at the same time. Okay, so hey, we the president of the church hurt club. So if you see us still in the church, like talk to us because we had to unlearn some things. Talk to us because we had to relearn some stuff. Talk to us because we really had to get connected with Jesus for real. That's
a good word.
So,
I never really walked away from my faith, but I feel like I spent years just kind of lost. I mean, just a loss of identity, And again, kind of getting back to what I was talking about earlier, feeling secure in what I believed in as a child and as a boy, kind of having that, what I thought I believed, crash down in front of me. And I spent, really like my young adulthood just feeling very lost, and not really knowing where my identity was rooted. And I continued to go to church because that's what we do in the South. We go to church, we just go through the motions. That's what people do. And so I continued to go through the motions, but inwardly felt very disconnected. And I think, like James, you just hit on it. There was a process of having to unlearn church to find Jesus, and realizing that, my identity is not in the lifestyle of a Christian, the lifestyle of a churchgoer, or what I thought that looked like, that my identity was in him. And the comfort for me, was, even though, I didn't walk away from church, I did feel distant from Jesus for many years. And it took a long time before I was able to sit down and look back and listen and realize that he was there with me the entire time. There's so many things that happen in my life, that happen in all of our lives, that in the moment it's very hard, or it can be very hard, to see God's hand in the present. It's always been easier for me to look back and see how his hand was in it the entire time, guiding me kind of every step of the way. And so now, I'm trying to walk with him in a way where I can see him in the present. And I feel like I'm walking with him probably more closely and intimately today than I ever have at any other point in my life. It's been a very, 24 was like a really encouraging year for me. Yeah.
And that's good, man. Y'all are helping some people. I hope y'all know that, because if you don't help anybody else, you're helping me. And so, man, one of the reasons I wanted to, do this particular episode is so that I myself could work through some of these things, because I'm still in process with a lot of the things that I experienced as a PK, and now I've got sons. I got two boys, and so I have to be aware of protecting their lives, protecting their. I want my sons to walk with Jesus. Don't want my sons to hate the church. I don't want them to hate Jesus, because, again, if we haven't learned the difference between the two, the programmatic side of church and the authentic Jesus, then a side effect, or an outcome rather, of that could be a disdain for the Lord Jesus, because where your anger is being pointed, uh, it's being pointed improperly. It should be pointed, in a different direction, of course. But you think that Jesus was the issue, when all along, uh, it wasn't Jesus. It was the improprieties of, potentially a parent who wasn't following through on who, first, the Lord has called them to be, because the scripture asks the question, like, how can you manage the house of God if you can't manage your own household? And so, probably what's going on there, is the fault. Not probably. It's true. The fault is not with Jesus. It's with it's with whomever your parent is. So anyway, y'all are helping me to remain vigilant and clear minded about how I'm going to interact with my sons. Because again, I want them to walk with Jesus. So, uh, couple questions, and I'm gonna try as best as I can to get us out of this chat in the next 10 minutes. So let's try to be mindful of that with our next two questions, because I feel these are relevant to the topic. So I want to make sure uh, that we do this. So the first question is, uh, what would you say directly to encourage a family struggling with the pressures of being a ministry family? How would you encourage them?
The way that we say that your job will replace you, your church will replace you. Spend time with your family.
Mm,
That church will outlive you. Even if you build it from the ground up, that church will outlive you.
mm,
The church is the bride of Christ, not yours. That's his wife. Go home to yours.
mhm. It's a good word.
That's good, man.
It's a real good word.
That's his bride, not yours. Go home to yours. And when you go home, you are not the pastor. You are not the bishop. You are not the overseer. You are not the moderator. You are daddy and you are husband.
Mm,
That is your responsibility. The greatest ministry you will ever have is those that carry your last name in your house.
mm,
I don't care from this point on if I'm known as the worst pastor ever, that I'm terrible at pastoring. I don't, the people, I'm hard on people. Okay, fine. As long as my son says you the best daddy ever, I won.
Come on, somebody.
I won,
That's
and
a word.
it's especially if he give his the highlight of my ministry will not be to preach in front of thousands of people. The highlight of my ministry will be for me to baptize my son in the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. That beats, that is peak for me.
Yeah, that's good.
That's for me. That's what I want.
Yeah.
It's for my own household. So I would say to any ministry family, to anybody, your house is the first ministry. The church is Jesus' bride, not yours. Stop cheating on Jesus. Stop cheating on your spouse. Stop it. Stop it.
You funny.
Go home.
Go
Go
home.
home.
It's like
Now,
it reminds me of Jerry Maguire, Cuba Gooding Jr. It's like,
Go
go
home.
home, Jerry.
Go home,
that's
pastor.
right.
Go home, apostle. Go home, bishop.
Yeah.
Go home. That's where you're needed. Your church will replace you after you die. My dad is gone, and guess what? Someone replaced him. And guess what? I'm going to replace that person. And guess what? Somebody's going to replace me.
Yeah.
It's going to be there, bruh. Go home.
Now, James, you said the highlight of your ministry, and I'm about to be funny. I'm not the funniest person in the world, so I had to let people know I'm about to tell a joke so I can get laughs. Anyway, I'm just too serious all the time, probably. Anyway, now you said the highlight of your ministry would be to baptize your son. You could join me and Barnes in the Presbyterian Church. We could just do a covenant
Look,
baptism.
I don't think that God willed it. I don't think that's that God willed it. No, wait. I don't think that God preordained it. That's the word. I don't think he preordained it. I don't think he preordained it.
There you go. I mean, you're the one that said you've been reading the Reformed Calvinists. So
Hey,
you know,
look, I'm still charismatic. So I mean, hey, I'm still charismatic.
they,
But
So
you said
they got
I
space
was
for you in the EPC, man. They got space for you. They got space for
wait, how much they pay?
you. Yeah, that's good. All right. Anybody else?
It's really hard to top what James just said. I
Mm,
really love what you just said um, about going home and being daddy and being husband, and you know, it's hard. I can't appreciate it. probably in the same way that you do, because you're now a father in the ministry, and probably how hard that is to flip that switch. But yeah, I think that's really good. Yeah, I would just totally agree. Like the success of the church is not dependent on you, and ultimately, it's not going to be your efforts, and your first responsibility is to your family.
The Bible literally says, if you don't take care of your family, you're worse than an infidel. So you got a tab and a collar on investments, and you're an infidel in the eyes of God? What? Crazy word. Go home.
That's it. Rochelle?
You waiting on me? I would just say balance. Balance is everything. Basically what he said, but in a nutshell, balance. I think that my parents didn't have balance. I can just speak for us, Well, no, I can speak for all my girlfriends, and because most of my friends are PK kids. Well, all my friends are PK kids. All my close friends. Yeah, every last one of them. That's crazy. Candace, Neglisha, Tilly, Tanya. Yeah, we literally, aren't we all?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We have those conversations. Those are my best friends. That's my nucleus. And if they're not PK kids, they were Deacons kids. But balance is everything. Take a trip with your family. I don't care if it's once a year. That will just give and we understand that. I mean, reality is a pastor, a shepherd has to lead. There's no getting away from that. And the flock is a many. Can y'all still hear me? Okay. and the flock is many. And the flock is many. So, and they are being pulled on each way. And you have to understand that pastors are learning as they're going too. They're forever learning. And they just want to do right by everybody, including their family. And sometimes they don't even realize that they have wronged you. Because we as children, we were scared to tell them. We weren't allowed to talk back to the adults when we were younger. I don't know. I couldn't. I felt we weren't allowed to say sister such and such did such and such to me and she's lying. We weren't, those kind of things. And you weren't allowed to tell your dad if he said, well, am I wrong? You weren't allowed to say, well, yeah. Yeah, you're wrong. You weren't allowed to say that. Sometimes you got in trouble and you knew that the parent was in the wrong, but I just feel like balance is everything. I feel like our pastors need a lesson on balance. They need to get together and they need to talk about what we're talking about. As for what, can you tell me some of the things that you did wrong in your marriage or some of the things you did wrong with your children so I won't make that mistake? They need a panel. I heard you say you was going to meet with the first ladies. You need to meet with these pastors.
Yep, it's coming.
And I'm talking about you need, the old heads. I give you some warrior strong, and then get the other ones in between there.
Myself, so Tucker, all the
because that's balance. That's a balanced panel. I'm just throwing that out there. But and a few people that'll be honest, because a lot of people won't be honest and put themselves out there. But I feel like I see people with a lot of pictures of themselves and their families. When I look at our family pictures, it's our families and other families, there's not many pictures of it as our family. So it's just things of that nature. Balance, 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 balance. That's it.
The other thought that came to my head too was just, talking about the pressures of being a preacher's kid. And I don't know if you guys find yourselves wishing this was the case more often. I do. But I wish I heard more pastors from the pulpit being more honest and vulnerable about their own shortcomings and imperfections. Because I feel like that's really important to model to your children, that I'm willing to get up in front of this whole room and let them all know that I am far from perfect. So that I can model to you that it's okay for you not to be perfect in front of these people too.
And can I tell you something from experience that helps? It makes your job easier. It takes the expectation down so you can actually be human. So that means with a C fall, they give you grace. So, but when you just always, all the time, that's how they see you. So from experience, transparency from the pulpit, say, hey, look, this is something that I battle with, this is something that I struggle with, and I'm holding the microphone. I got the collar on, I got the papers, and I'm preaching. So I'm letting you know this is a place where I struggle in. And I, like I said, struggle. I haven't submitted to it, I haven't lost, I'm still fighting. So join me in this fight, and I'll join you in yours.
And I did have that privilege. My mom was an open book. She would get up there and tell stuff, and I'd be embarrassed for my father, which pushed him to have to be more transparent. He wasn't as transparent as my mom, if that makes sense. She would get up there and tell all their business. So I think that's why Angie and I are so open, because we did have a mother like this. So you're absolutely right, Mr. Barnes. What's your name, Brian? Right?
Barnes.
Barnes. Okay. You're absolutely right in what you said. Transparency is everything. Everything. It makes you seem more human. It makes you seem human. And it makes you seem touchable. One thing I can't stand is a snobby saint. So, an untouchable saint. And we already have that reputation of being stuck up. PK kids are stuck up. That's a reputation too. That you have that of being stuck up. Especially if you can sing, if you got a talent, if you're a great preacher, you dress nice, you look nice, whatever it is, it's you're stuck up. It's just that you think you're better than everybody. Oh, that should have been in the first subject we talked about, shouldn't it? That's a misconception. Good. That's a misconception of us. And so if you got transparency, I know Vito, when he was younger, I thought he was very arrogant. I didn't know you in that way. You know what I'm saying?
Facts.
But I would see him and he'd be like, that's how you look,
Facts. It was a front. It was a front. I learned my note. It was a front. I was scared. I was scared of y'all. Like, don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. Don't hurt me, please. Don't hurt me, please.
And his little jaws, he was the little old something. He was, he wasn't tall as nothing. And he walked in there with his chest and his little Bible and, so I was like, oh, this little nigga stuck up. But once I got to know him, once he got older, he's just the sweetest person, one of the sweetest people I ever met. So just things of that nature. Just use one example because you was on here. It's cool.
Like I said, it's like most people are stuck up because they're scared. Like I said, I was scared. I'm stuck up because like I said, I have no family in Alabama. I have no auntie, no uncles, no cousins, no none of that here. My family was my mom, my dad, and my granddaddy. So so that was the nucleus. Like you have your nucleus of friends. That was my nucleus. Was my family. And then
we had no family either, so I can relate to that.
Right. So you coming in from a different place, different customs, different culture, different ways of doing church. Like my dad coming here, he was already a bishop and he was doing prophetic stuff. And at the time, nobody was a bishop in North Alabama. They was all Rem, not a reverend, a Rem. Okay. So when he started flowing and doing stuff, it caught people off guard. They didn't know what to do, and it made us black sheep. And then now I'm seeing, it's catching on now. So now stuff that he was doing back then is now accepted. So when you're dealing with a lot of warfare from being different, you gotta get tough. And that's why I'm still kind of and I have to dial back and not be so okay, yeah, let's talk. So that's what I've learned over a period of time. But when you're from a different place coming in and ministry is different, it's a free-for-all. I say this all the time. Being in the army of the Lord is the only place you can get shot in the barracks. And people are clapping.
That's a good word. friendly fire. Like,
You get shot by friendly fire and people are clapping.
yeah. Yeah.
And like I said, we're the arm of the Lord. We're on the same team. We got the enemy over there, not in our barracks, not in the mess hall. The enemy's out there. Why are you shooting me? But so we had to get tough. I had to get tough. I had to have the front to survive.
Well, you had him.
And I'm here, ain't I?
Yeah, you did what you had to do. You did what you had to do. And I think
He was cute, though. He was cute.
To the points that we've been making all throughout the episode, it's we learned to do what we had to do.
Absolutely.
Like, in order to protect our space, protect ourselves, and that was just part of just doing what you had to do, and there's no no what's the word I'm trying to think of, like there's no like we don't hold that against you.
Absolutely.
As a matter of fact, James, it's funny, and I'm gonna take us to our final question after this. It's funny, James, my dad and your dad did ministry right down the road from one another for years in Hillsboro, Alabama.
Wow.
And I didn't know that.
I
didn't know.
that.
Yeah, I didn't know. So you guys had a church building that was right down the street from a church called Mount Olive in Hillsboro, Alabama.
Yes.
And my dad was the former pastor of Mount Olive there in Hillsboro.
Because my daddy was a pastor of Mount Olive, and he left. Yes.
Okay, I didn't know.
He followed after Pastor Audra Watkins' dad.
Okay.
He was the pastor before my dad got there. Okay. And he left. It was an Easter Sunday of '98 that he left the church, walked out Easter Sunday, and started the church right down the street corner. And we got that building down the way. Yeah. So that's probably when your dad pulled up to Mount Olive. So that was your dad succeeded my dad probably.
So my dad was, so I look young, but I'm a little older than I look probably. But my dad was the pastor of Mount Olive in 1990, from 1990 to 1997, something like that. Something like that. I can't remember. So maybe there wasn't.
So we followed you then.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure of the time frame. I was too young to care when we were there.
We came in '98. I remember that because we stayed in Mount Olive. Like our TV was on the Leslie speaker. We were taking wash-ups in the sink making. I remember that. We had no place to stay when we first came to Alabama.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. See, the more you know. See, people don't know your man. I hate to like segue us to the end because everybody has like such a powerful story, but the more you know, like that's part of your story. Like people wouldn't know that. Like people wouldn't know that y'all didn't have a place to stay and y'all stayed in the church. That's another element to being a pastor's kid. But
I actually did know that though, because your dad had got real close to Warrior, and we were like one of the first churches where he started coming into, because we had been doing that since the 80s. When my dad came in, there was none of that going on. Amos, you know that, pretty much going on in Decatur way. And that's why we got out of Baptist. That's a whole nother situation. But yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Well, y'all, I have appreciated y'all being on this call. Last thing, this should have taken up the bulk of the call, but as we get off the call, let's take a moment to encourage, uplift, and speak well of our parents. Because that's the way that I want this. I want them to be remembered from this call. So let's take a moment to do that.
One of my parents is no longer here, but I appreciate him for fathering me when he didn't have a father, and I was hard on him because I felt like I didn't get what I needed. Everybody else did, but I didn't get what I needed. And what God had to show me was the areas that I lacked, the kingdom gained. I'm gonna say it again. The areas where you lacked, the kingdom gained. So whenever I preach at a church, I always acknowledge the wife and the children, because of their sacrifice, somebody's getting saved. Somebody's hearing the gospel. So I looked at it as, when I allowed my dad to, when I stopped looking at him as my dad, as a pastor, and I just let him just be, that's when I was able to mend or fix anything I had with him before he passed away. So I honor him by continuing the legacy. I honor him by speaking out against injustice. I honor him by being available to all of God's people, within limits and boundaries. So I honor him every day. So I'm thankful for his impartation, thankful for his love, his teaching is still changing people to this day. To my mom, she is a soldier. I call my mom a gangster. She a gangster for real. My mom, she has nurtured and helped many young ladies, many women in the area. And I don't think, she doesn't understand like the impact and influence that she has. And I don't think she understands the seeds that she has sown. So I just want her to know that you're valuable, you're wanted, you are necessary for this time, and you are needed for this time. And that every seed that you have planted is going to come back to you. Yeah.
Is it my turn?
Go for it, Rochelle.
Whoever wants to go.
Okay. I don't. It's so much I can say about my parents. They're just phenomenal people. They're just phenomenal people with the church, the community, the nation, really. Pastor's still here. I think he's probably the oldest pastor in Decatur right now. The oldest black, the longest running black pastor right now in
Yeah.
Decatur.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think he's
Easily.
that.
Easily.
So he's
Yeah.
that, and he's still standing tall. I don't know how many more years he's going to do it. He mentioned, he didn't know. He's what he said last Sunday. So, but he's still standing tall. My mom, what can I say about her? Her funeral spoke for itself. We had over 2,000 people sign that book, fighting to get into the church from everywhere. So she was just one of a kind, literally one of a kind. Phenomenal people. I am what I am because of them.
Man.
So, and I think I'm
Yeah,
phenomenal.
we
You
think so
better
too,
think you
Rochelle.
Yeah, I think I'm
We think
phenomenal.
so too.
Yeah.
That's good though. That's so true. I mean, I would not be where I am today if it were not for both of my parents. And it's really easy, like in some of the things that we were talking about earlier, to go back and look at decisions they made and be critical. It's really easy to do that, but my parents did so much more right than they did wrong.
Absolutely.
And now that I'm a parent, it's easy for me to see that even the things that they did wrong, they were doing the best that they could, just like we all do, trying to make the best decision we can in the moment. We're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. And I've never questioned, how much my parents love me and whether those decisions, all of them, good, bad, or the other, they all came from a place of love. And, I think they have each shown me like little pieces of heaven that they instilled in me as a child, so that when I did go through early adulthood and kind of wanted to walk away from Jesus, there was something that was already placed inside of me that was started with my parents that kept me wanting to come back.
Yes.
And so anyway, I just love and appreciate both of you so much. And yeah, thank you.
That's so good. Man, I guess I'll lift my parents up as well. My mother passed in 2016, but James, you said your mom was a gangster. My mom really was a gangster. Now, and I mean that like for real. Like she was in the trap,
That's right.
which is a whole other part of my story that people don't even know. But it's coming. I'm gonna tell
In
you the
time, sir.
story.
In time.
Yeah, yeah. But man, the most loving, giving person in the world, and I get to say that because she was my mom. She would literally give you the clothes from her back. I saw her do it multiple times. Uh, uh, we always had someone living with us, even though, uh, like y'all have said, there ain't a whole lot of money in ministry, and so we didn't have a lot growing up. But we always had someone living with us because what little we did have, we wanted to share,
Hmm.
and that was, you know, pioneered by my mom and my dad together. And my dad, he is still hanging in there strong. Like, and he has a testimony as well. My dad served 15 years in prison, and he had two life sentences. He wasn't supposed to ever get out of prison. To go from being an institutionalized man to coming out into the free world and raising a family, and pouring into us the way that he did, I will always cherish my dad for that. Again, he and my mom were some of the are some of the most giving people I know, and as you all have said as well, I wouldn't be the man that I am today without them. So, yeah. Well, y'all, we have come to the end. We said 45 minutes and we are almost at 2 hours. So, thank y'all for
Hey,
staying with me.
hey, that's how church parking lot conversations go. All right.
That's
Real
right.
talk. Real
That's right.
talk.
That's how I
That
go
is
for
no
real.
lie. That
You
is
be
no lie.
rushing. You be ready for the preacher to get done so you can go talk about it.
That's right. That's right. It's the after party. Well, thank you to our guests. We appreciate you all.
You're so
If you
welcome.
have been also tuning in on the live, thank you all as well. Now, uh, this is the Be the Hope podcast. So now it's your turn. If you have been tuning in through audio or through video, it is your turn to go and be the hope that people need to see. Until next time, peace.
Thanks, Amos. Rochelle, James.
Thank y'all.
Great hanging out with y'all.
Good seeing y'all.